Okay, so we're back in this same scene and we have to continue to set up the materials and shaders for it. So let's get to work. Actually, it's more like fun. This is a lot of fun. At least to me it is. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is set up the materials for some of these walls. So let's start off with the walls. And I'm going to start off with these walls here because as you can see, these walls are one object and these walls in here are another object. That's because we're going to set up one material for each one of those walls. Not each wall panel, but each wall object. So we have walls B, for example, and then we have walls A. And you can see that here, in case you're wondering where I'm getting that name from. It's here in the name box in the MCP, or the main command panel. So when I select these walls, they're identified as walls A. These walls are identified as walls B. So we have to set up different materials for different walls. Okay, so let's hit Control 7 to open up the Material Manager again. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up a new material, and this one's going to be based off of a blend. So let's go to Create, Blend. Let's rename this new blend material, and let's call it Walls A. This is going to be the material for every wall in the scene identified as Wall A, or Wall A type. Okay, now the next thing we need to do is, well, start to create the shader network for this. So it's pretty simple. Let's go to the blend. Let's plug in an image into the diffuse port, and we're going to go all the way down to walls and look for walls color. It's not going to be called walls A. It's going to be called walls color. Okay, so let's open up the blend again, and this time we're going to plug in a specular map. So let's go over here to the specular port here and plug in an image, new from file, go all the way down to walls, and we're going to pick up walls specular. So let's plug that in. There we go. Hit F6 to clean that up. Alright, let's bring in an Ambient Occlusion node to make this look even better. And let's also bring in a Mix 2 Colors node found in the Mixers section. Okay, let's take the blend and plug it into the base color, and the Ambient Occlusion plug it into color 1, and let's switch the weight color to pure white and the mix mode to multiply. Now for the Ambient Occlusion node, changes that we need to make are going to be just the distance. It's going to have a distance of 5. Okay, let's take the Mix Colors node here, and let's plug that into the surface shadow and the photon ports of the material. Okay, now what we need to do is add a bump effect. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to Nodes, grab ourselves a bump map generator, plug that into the bump map slot of the walls material, or the walls A material. Let's open up the bump map generator and pull up the walls bump image, walls underscore bump. Now in terms of the bump map values for the factor, let's go with a strong value of -5. Okay, hit F6 to clean this up, and there we go. We have our specular map, we have our diffuse color map or texture, and we have a bump effect and a nice ambient occlusion effect going on here. So next thing to do is to apply this material to all the objects called walls A. So how many walls A do we have? We have plenty of walls A. Let's go over here and we'll put in walls A and an asterisk, and that'll select all 6 of our walls A objects. Then just right click on the walls A material, click on Assign to Selection, and now you see that all the objects in the scene are supposed to have that material, in fact, do have the walls A material. So now we do a render preview, and we see what we get is obviously a lot better than having just purple walls, which can drive you crazy. Just imagine that, living inside a locked up room like an asylum or something, or an insane house with purple walls. Would not be good, that's for sure. Okay, now next thing to do is to set up the material for walls B. So let's go ahead and let's do that. Let's do it based off of a blend shader. Now I'm a lazy person. So I'm not going to create this shader network all over again. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save you the agony of watching me plug all that stuff together. I'm going to right click and hit duplicate material to create a new walls material here, which is basically the same thing as the other walls material. So let's take it and let's rename it, and this one's going to be called Walls B Matte, which makes more sense. But we need to change the images around, so let's go to its color image node here, and we're going to have to go and pick up Walls B Color to replace that. Let's go to the specular map. We have to change that as well. So let's go down to Walls B Specular, plug that in. Let's go to Bump Map Generator and replace that as well. So we'll grab a new from File, go down to Walls B Bump. Okay, awesome. So let's hit F6 to clean that up. And there we go. We have the same shading network as the Walls A. The only difference is that Walls B uses obviously different color maps because it's a different material. Okay, next thing to do is to assign this new material to all of the Wall B objects. So select one of these Wall B's or Walls B, put an asterisk mark, hit enter, and it should select 6 Wall B objects, which is correct. So all we have to do, right click on the Walls B material, assign to selection, and there we go. Now to confirm that everything's working, let's just go in here and do a render preview. And you can do render previews, just click on this preview button right here in the render toolbar, and there we go. We have our nice walls material, and you can see the ambient occlusion effect is adding this nice dirty type dark effect to the corners and things, basically adding contact shadows, which looks great. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And I'm already in the mood to take this object and import it into some game engine and start playing some multiplayer or something. Okay, anyway, let's move on. Now, the next object to add a material to would be the ceiling. Let's add a ceiling material. Ceiling material is going to be pretty simple. Since we only have one type of ceiling, we're only going to worry about one type of material for the ceiling. So let's go over here and let's create a new ceiling material, and we're going to create it based off of a blend again. So let's go to blend. Let's rename this blend to something else. Obviously, ceiling would make a lot of sense. Okay, now we need to start plugging in our images and whatnot to the blend. So let's go to the blend, let's go to the diffuse port and plug in an image. Let's go to new from file. Here's ceiling color, that's the one we want to plug into that. Okay, nice dirty looking ceiling. Come on, you can't have a clean kill house, it's got to be dirty and worn out and stuff. Okay, now let's go to its specular attributes and plug in a specular map. We're going to plug in a ceiling specular. Okay, hit F6 to clean that up. Okay, next thing that we need to do is add some ambient occlusion to make this look even better. So let's go to illumination, pull up an ambient occlusion. Let's also pull up a mixer node here, mix two colors. Plug in the mixer node to the material's surface, shadow, and photon. Remember to hold shift while you do that so you don't have the menu disappearing on you every time you make a connection. Plug the blend into the mix two colors, plug it into the base color, and plug the ambient occlusion into the color 1. Now let's change the weight value to pure white and the mix mode to multiply on the mix two colors node. And for ambient occlusion, let's go ahead and change the value to 5. Again, just like we've been doing before. 5 is just giving us a nice look to the scene. Of course, you can use a different value if you wanted to, but 5 is what I'm going to stick with. So I'm going to go to nodes and pull up a bump map generator to add some bump mapping to our ceiling, make it look a little bit more realistic. I'm going to go to new from file and pick up the ceiling bump. And as far as the bump map generator factor value goes, again, I'm going to go with -5 to give it a nice strong effect. Okay, so there we go. there's our shader network for the ceiling. Next thing, you probably guessed it, is to apply the material to the ceiling. So I'll put an asterisk mark, select it, and we ended up selecting 12 ceiling objects, which is probably incorrect. Yep, it ended up picking up ceiling lights as well. So I'm going to go ahead and deselect these ceiling lights by holding down Control. We should only have 6 ceiling objects, which we do now. Let's right click on the ceiling material and assign to selection. And now the ceiling has the material that we need it to have. So let's do a render preview here just to see what that looks like. It's kind of dark up on the top because there's very little light hitting the ceiling, but you can see clearly how much better this looks with the ceiling material. The ambient occlusion effect is just beautiful. I really love personally to use ambient occlusion like that to dirty scenes up. Just looks so great. A lot of next-gen games now are starting to use real-time ambient occlusion, so it makes sense to use it. Okay, so there we go. Now the next thing to do is to set up the floor. Now the floor is going to be more complicated to set up. It's going to be the most complicated material system or shader networks to set up in this particular project scene that we're working on. So I'm going to end this video here and we'll start a brand new fresh video working on the floors. Because for the floors we're going to use a different technique to make the floors look nice and dirty and to add different types of effects to the floor. So you'll see what I mean and it'll make more sense in the next video. So I'll see you there.